Hello, a warm and kindly welcome to the My Kind of Leader podcast. This is my take on why leaders bully. That might seem a strange title for a pod that's about kindness in leadership, but bear with me. Just as a starter for 10, I wanted to let you know that on each of the slides on this pod, if you're watching it on YouTube or anywhere else, other platform, my website, etc., there is a QR code in the corner of each slide, and that takes you to my LinkedIn profile that's got numerous free resources for you to delve a little bit deeper into the subject matter that is my passion and life's work, and so you might find those things helpful. So I'm going to give a bit of an explanation of why I am talking about bullish behaviour in leadership. Couple of things. Having done the 3 interviews in this series, the experience of people being on the end of bullish behaviour, and I make a point of calling it bullish behaviour because I think calling somebody a bully is not what they all are, but of course, that's my take on it. I'd rather say that it's bullish behaviour amongst other behaviours rather than that person is a bully, because they're so much more than that often. And in no way am I condoning it or excusing it, but I feel like we need to be having a conversation about where bullish behaviour comes from, because a lot of labels around bullying and bullish behaviour and bullies, so to speak, is really about the atrociousness of the behaviour or the so-called person, and it doesn't really get to the bottom of it. So we can't get to the bottom of these things that really affect people, that really injure people actually. Traumatise people. Bullish behaviour traumatises people. I've had many clients in the last 28 years who have come to me not understanding why they are traumatised, but they may have had months, even years of an experience of bullying. So it's not small, and it really matters in companies, it really matters in teams, so it really matters in leadership. So this pod really came from not that I've been criticised. I think I've done several talks, presentations, where I look like I'm sympathising with bullish behaviour, and it's not that. I'm just trying to explain something that's tricky. Over years of working with people that may have a propensity for anger or bullish behaviour, or, as I said earlier, people that have been on the end of it. Now, what I know about bullish behaviour is that it's rarely because the person is a bully. Okay? It's usually because they are consistently angry. And what I know about anger is that it doesn't last. No emotion lasts very long if you have it and get to move through it. Okay? So, because we know that anger doesn't last, then why do people appear angry for months or years? Now, it's usually because it covers something else. And more often than not, it covers it covers grief and loss. So, if we know that anger doesn't last, because basically pure anger's over within minutes, now it might mean that you seethe for a while longer or you simmer for a good while. Actual anger doesn't last. So if you have an angry boss, so to speak, that's using bullish behaviour to cope, then it's usually because it's covering grief or loss. Now, grief and loss doesn't mean the loss of a person, necessarily as in bereavement. It can often be loss of a role, loss of somebody's self-worth, loss of their identity. Leaders that will come to me to work on this kind of thing may have done something that they feel not proud of, they feel shame about in the past, and they don't know how to get through it. And that means that they've had to find another way of coping. So if grief, loss, and therefore anger is used to cover it, can feel insurmountable. So what they do is they adapt to deal with something that's as painful as grief, and grief is the most painful emotion of all human emotions because we've lost something we can't get back. I've said that in series 1. But it's good to remind ourselves the reason why grief is so painful is that we've lost something we can't get back. Now, in bullish behaviour in leadership, this becomes a double-edged sword because people then behave in an angry manner consistently in order to gain some control over what feels insurmountable. So maybe it's their loss of identity, maybe it's a loss of a loved one, maybe it's a loss of a job, it could be absolutely anything because it's very, very personal. And the person has to find a way of managing this emotion that is insurmountable. So if anger is lasting, it's often covering grief. More often than not, it's covering grief. So if you look at a bullish person, a person who is using bullish behaviour, that person is in agony inside. And again, I'm not excusing it. We're trying to explore it, explain it, and help people find ways out of it. The shame is crippling. So what can happen is the person is finding a way to manage the grief. For whatever reason the grief has turned up in their life or has been maintained in their life, they're finding ways to manage. Now what can happen is they go, oh, okay, so being able to propel this anger at other people gives them some relief. It may be a short-term relief. It may be that because they use anger and bullish behaviour consistently, it feels like a relief over a long period of time. But what happens is this backfires over time because it actually ends up compounding their grief, their loss of self, their loss of confidence in themselves, their loss of self-esteem, because they've now behaved in a way that they can't be proud of. So this turns out that it brings about an inner brutality that most of us have, where we turn against self or we fall out with self, which then leads to us being really cross with ourselves often. Now, the responsible thing to do is to try to bottom out why you've been angry for years, months or years in the first place, and trying to trace that back to either an incident or a set of incidents. Now, that doesn't mean to say dig up the past and wallow in self-pity or wallow in years of therapy. It doesn't have to be like that. Sometimes it's just like being able to acknowledge, okay, so this terrible thing happened to me 10 years ago, and instead of being able to cry it out or feel the grief or feel the shame or whatever the really, really, really painful emotion is, I fell out with myself, I became cross, and now that's what I propel onto other people. Because our relationship with self is what we project onto other people, whether we like it or not. And I know I said lots about this in series 1. But bullish behaviour is really a cover-up of this internal relationship with self. Okay, so somebody who is using bullish behaviour to manage their own emotional world has a very high level of inner brutality, and that's what they're projecting outwards. Consequently, they feel really ashamed of what they're doing. They might not share that. They're very unlikely to share that because they're in a cycle of using anger to extinguish their own pain. Okay, so it gets propelled out, it gets felt by other people, it has an injurious effect on other people, whether that's in personal relationships or in collegial relationships. It has an injurious effect. That person using the bullish behaviour can see what they're doing. They might not know a way around it, they might not know a way through it, they might not even know why they're doing it, but they know it's not okay, and then that compounds the fact that they don't feel proud of themselves. And so the cycle continues. Okay, and that's why people use these words like it's a vicious circle or a vicious cycle, because it truly is. Because if you've fallen out with yourself because of your behaviour, guess what? Unless you cry that out, i.e. grieve it, you're not going to move through to a different way of being, i.e. you will always rely on anger to extinguish your own internal pain. And that's why it has such a massive effect on people. And I really don't want to underestimate this. Just because I can see it from the bullish behaviour point of view doesn't mean to say I feel like it's okay. It really has a traumatising effect on people. People leave jobs over this, they leave relationships over this, they leave successful businesses because of this. They leave their dreams behind because of this. So the cycle is really, really vicious. So what can be done about this? What can be done to address bullish behaviour in ourselves and perhaps in others, in colleagues? Well, partly we need to start having the conversation like this about what actually is it. And just because it's complicated doesn't mean to say we shouldn't try. And I would never give up on somebody who is using bullish behaviour to survive, because they've got lots of good about them. They can't see it anymore. Very few people can see it anymore. But actually, what a terrible waste. They need help to search inside themselves and just go, enough is enough. So what needs to happen? People need to be able to work on their inner brutality. And what does that actually mean? What it means is it means working on how you treat yourself inside. Okay, your inner brutality is the internal narrative which gives yourself a hard time, beats you up, harangues you, torments you about the things you've done and haven't done, the things you've said or haven't said, the behaviours you're not proud of, and it really doesn't give you a break. So working on your own inner brutality really, really helps in terms of allowing yourself to make mistakes, grieve them and get through them. People that rely on bullish behaviour haven't done that process. And what I mean by that process just means feel it so that you get to move through it. If you need to feel the shame that you have kind of dealt yourself because there's behaviour you're not proud of, feel that, feel the grief of that and get to move through it. And then you won't rely on extinguishing that feeling on somebody else. What you'll do is you'll go, right, I can see where I've made a mistake. I can see so-called weaknesses in myself. I'm not really keen on that word, but we tend to use it a lot, strengths and weaknesses, etc. And it allows you to move through experience. If you then work on how you meet and treat yourself inside and learn over time to meet yourself in a companionable way, not in just a compassionate way, which is passive, a companionable way, which is active. Compassion is passive. Companionability is active. It's like, right, I have felt awful, dreadful, despicable for years, and it's really affecting my leadership, my ability to be the best I can be in my role or in my relationship, whatever you need to be your best for. Yourself, for instance, wouldn't hurt. But if you treat yourself in a companionable way, it means that you get through things. It doesn't mean to say you're perfect. It doesn't mean to say you won't make mistakes, but you get through them more quickly. And the way you do that, the method that allows you to move through experiences, is to allow all of your emotion so that you get to move through it. Have your emotional process. Own your emotional process and take responsibility for it. And really, that's a very flowery way of just saying, have your feelings, have your emotions, so that you get to move through them. It's the 10 basic emotions. Have them all. They're all valid. There are no good ones or bad ones. Some hurt more than others. Some feel better than others. But you need to have them all. And people who rely on bullish behaviour that starts to work against them, because people can't see them as real people, they see them as the so-called bully. People that rely on that have not got all of their emotions available to them. So you look at, what's my level of inner brutality? Am I meeting and treating myself with companionability? I.e., am I allowing myself to get over my mistakes? And am I allowing all of my emotions? Are all of my emotions available to me? And are they all equally valid? Ask yourself those 3 questions. Ask any leader those 3 questions. And then you'll start to get a sense of the kind of leader they can be, but also the kind of ease with which they can lead. Okay? These are keys to easing up somebody to be the best leader they can be. And everybody's bringing something to the table. So if you meet and treat yourself with kindliness, you will meet and treat other people with kindness too. Okay? Your relationships will improve, respect is gained, and the positive impact that you'd like to believe that you're creating will ensue. If you've got a high level inner brutality, it will find a way of scuppering your ability to lead with impact and respect. It will scupper your ability to have the positive impact that you want, that you set out to have. And that's a real shame, because that's why I don't like using the word bully, because that's not who they are. And again, it's not okay, but there is an explanation for it. And it's great that we can see through this kind of lens and go, okay, that person has a very high level of inner brutality. Or if you're listening to this podcast and you think, oh, crumbs, that's me. Okay. All you can do is, as quickly as possible, take responsibility for that. And all of this stuff can be done privately. You can privately check out what your level of inner brutality is. Okay, is that impacting my leadership? It will be impacting your leadership. I can categorically say that. There is no one person with a high level of inner brutality where that will not be seeping into their leadership one way or another. And obviously it's at different degrees. Somebody who's having to use bullish behaviour or feels that they need to use bullish behaviour is really in true agony inside and has some way to go to getting to the point where they feel better about themselves inside, and that affects their leadership for the better. So the first step is to be able to get a measure of your own inner brutality. And on this QR code, this takes you directly to an inner brutality assessment, like a quiz that I created based on my clinical experience with clients and working with the leaders around the world, the kinds of things people might say to themselves, the kinds of conversations they have with themselves, the kind of behaviours that they may see or you may see. And it's a great measure. You can do it completely privately. Try not to hold your past behaviours against yourself and just take strides now. or not even strides, just tiny steps now to do differently. That's all you can ask of yourself. Get to your behaviour, understand your behaviour slightly quicker each time. Make a decision that the bullish behaviour actually isn't serving you anymore. It might be keeping you away from people in a strange way. It might be appearing to keep you safe and away from people, but it will be ruining your success in having the impact that you truly want. And no leader that I've ever worked with over the last many years, decades, has ever said they really want people to go back home from work or leave their meetings detesting them. They don't want that really. But the bullish behaviour can create that kind of distance, can create anger in others, lots and lots of obstructions to good communication, collaborations, solidarity. So if you want to take the first step, by all means scan this QR code. You'll get some results. It's not a pure science, but it's based on clinical experience, and it might help you take that first step. What level do I fall out with myself? At what level do I despise myself? At what level do I feel like I've let myself down? And see how that cycle works within you. What's that internal narrative? That is what causes bullish behaviour. And if organisations were to be training people about this, what a different view we would have. And then this bullish behaviour would not become entrenched. It would not have that injurious and traumatising effect on individuals and teams. And, in turn, institutions, companies, businesses. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. A quick recap that bullish behaviour is almost always covering some kind of grief, some kind of loss, and that can be on many things: loss of a person, loss of self-esteem, loss of identity, loss of a job, loss of family, many things. It's the person's own internal world that's getting projected outwards. And I know lots of us know this. We do. But the behaviour is so injurious that it's very hard to see through it. But I think if we really want to make a change, we've got to see through it, and also give those people who are in that kind of agony, inadvertently using bullish behaviour to feel better. We've got to have this conversation, be out there and give them somewhere to go for the better of everybody. Okay? It doesn't help anybody to just create more shame around it. So that's why I look like a sympathiser when I'm empathising with where this comes from, and I've tried to find something that will help, not just the person with bullish behaviour, but those persons on the end of it. Okay, let's find reasons, not blame. Okay, so I hope that's helpful, and if you liked this particular pod, you've got something to say, by all means throw some comments, send me an email at anna@annapington.com, and subscribe to whatever your platform is, your preferred platform, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.